Guys, it's Jesse from Space Station Rehearsals here, and this is a different angle because this is going to be a long form video. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you. There's a lot of instructional videos on how to make the lo-fi microphones with just the receiver. I wanted to show you like a bit of a guide on how to make one with the bass, where it has the rotary dial stutter effect and then the hang-up switch cutoff. For what you'll need, I got here is a Northern Electric Model 500 with the rotary dial. This instructional video would also work with the 1500 and the 2500 model. Obviously, you just wouldn't wire in the rotary because it's just buttons. I mean, you could wire in the buttons and they kind of do the same thing. You just have to press the buttons instead of do the dial, but why? Then you're going to need an in and out XLR. That's going to go on the bass. You're going to need a male end XLR. That's going to go on the phone mic. Some heat shrink for the cable you might potentially need. Screwdriver, file, soldering iron, electrical tape, or more heat shrink. You're also going to need a 22 millimeter hole saw bit, and a soldering iron, and heat gun for the heat shrink. You can also use a lighter if you don't mind burning your fingertips. Yeah, for that, we're just going to move on forward. So your first step, going to open up the base. It's typically 2 slotted screws, one in the front, one in the back. Okay, here we go. So these Model 500s, they made for about close to 50 years, maybe more. So the insides are going to be similar, but perhaps a little different depending on how old yours is. But luckily, the cables inside are almost always color coded exactly the same, so this should be pretty straightforward. Looks like somebody left a note for me here. We'll read that later. What you're going to need to do is, first off, is take out the cable you won't need, which is the phone cable. You also want to remove the coiled cable for the receiver, because we're going to use that for the XLR. And then you want to take out and remove the bell. Now, the bell is usually held down in 2 or 3 screws, here, here, and here. All right, like I said before, the bell we're not using in this in any way, shape, or form. We need the space for the ins and outs of the XLRs. You can keep it on your desk as a curio, or you can toss it. Next, you'll want to remove this cable. Now, it's going to have a little metal hook right here because it keeps it from getting pulled on the internals. Same thing goes for this one. This one actually unhooked as soon as I opened it. This one, you might need to fiddle a bit with it, but it typically comes out with very little effort, like so. There'll be 4 points here that needs to be unscrewed, and then that just goes in the garbage as well. Next, we'll remove the coil cable. It'll be held in 4 spots, 2 white, a red, and a black. They're typically in the front over here. And again, everything's typically just a slotted screwdriver. Sometimes you open it up and it'll be a little different. Sometimes they're little push pins where you just kind of pull them out. But more often than not, you'll find it's just a flathead screwdriver. So we're going to set that aside. I'll do another video on showing how to make this, but yeah, there's plenty of videos on how to turn these into lo-fi microphones. This video is more about the bass. The next steps here is to get your 4 cables that you're going to need. You're going to need 2 cables from the hang-up mechanism and 2 cables from the rotary dial. The rotary dial is color-coded, typically color-coded, like 90% of the time, I'd say, is going to be red, green, white, white. We want, sorry, not red, green, blue, green, white, white. What we want is we want the blue and the green. The 2 whites, just cut them off, wrap them in electrical tape, set them aside. You don't need those. If for whatever reason you do find that you're having trouble getting access, this rotary dial mechanism comes off with 2 screws on the side, again, typically slotted. I don't need to do it in this instance, but I'm going to do it for you to demonstrate, just so you can see what the back of this does. But typically, you don't need to remove this. You just need to get your blue and green wire, snip off those little spade bits to strip the bare wire, and then you just solder them and connect them in a later step. There we go. That was a bit of a struggle. But yeah, like I said before, there are 4 cables that come out of here. It's going to be a blue, a green, and 2 whites. The 2 whites we don't need. So typically what I do is I'll just coil them up, cap them off with a little electrical tape so they don't accidentally touch anything metal on the inside and cause some weird hum. Uh, just like that. And then these two, what we're going to do is we're going to snip off the spade bits, and we're going to silver the cables, cable ends, so they're ready to be soldered at a later step. Okay, and for the last 2 cables, we're going to need the green and the white striped cables off of the hang-up mechanism. Now, you may have noticed that some of these are look a little newer than others. A bit of a history lesson for you here while I undo these cables. They designed this phone back in, I believe, the 40s, and they made it so that all the parts are interchangeable. So what it appears is that at some point in time, probably in the 70s or 80s, this phone went in back to Bell for service, and then it got sent over to Northern Electric or Western Electric. This is Northern Telecom, which is what Northern Electric changed its name to in the late 70s. Um, and yeah, you can see here that at some point in time it was serviced because instead of having the screw terminals, it's been soldered directly to this interchange block here where all the cables route. And this dial has been updated. So this dial appears to be from the 70s or 80s because it has the newer wiring. And this hang-up mechanism, and by extension the entire base itself, is likely from the late 50s because it has the older cloth style. Now, that doesn't mean that the color coding is different. It just means it might be a little faded. So it's very hard for me to see here, but I believe, I mean, we're going to find out together, but I believe that is my white and gray cable. And then my green one's right there, which I'm going to need to snip off because it's soldered directly on. Luckily, I have some wire snips. Okay, that was a bit of a struggle. So yeah, again, not really necessary, but just to be doubly sure that nothing ends up touching metal and getting accidentally grounded on something, creating a weird hum. Generally, what I'll do is I'll wrap off this stuff in electrical tape and tie it off and tuck it away. So these are the cables we're not using. These are the 2 cables we are going to be using. Okay, we have our base's wiring prepared. We have our 2 from the rotary dial stripped and ready to be silvered, and we have our 2 from the hang-up mechanism stripped and ready to be silvered and soldered. In addition to these wires, you're going to need 3 more to bridge the connection from your in, your out, and then going through all these wires. So I'm going to have that prepared and set aside really quickly. Okay, so yeah, 3 small bits of wire. This one is basically just used to bridge the neutral, and then these 2 are just to give you a bit of extra working room for when you do your in to here, and then you bridge that, and then that goes back out. You'll see it in a later step. But for now, we're going to set this aside, and then we're going to prep the top piece because we need to make some input holes. Okay, so like I said before, you're going to need a 22 millimeter hole saw bit and some power tools. And what you're going to do is you're going to put a hole here and here. You could just like mill out the 2 existing ones, but I find that making 2 fresh holes and then just getting everything to compression fit is a lot better than mucking about with having to like drill into plastic, risking cracking it, or using some sort of heating element to melt it into place and have it stick, or hot gluing it. Yeah, I just find it a lot better to just have everything compression fit very nicely. And that seems to work with these little guys here that you can get on Amazon for a couple bucks a piece, and a 22 millimeter hole saw, which I'm now going to do off camera. Okay, so we got our 2 holes drilled in there, in and out. And then what you might want to do is get a bit of sanding or filing implement just to get rid of all the high spots that come with drilling 50-year-old plastic. Try not to inhale too much of the dust. You don't want any weird cancers. And then what you're also going to need to do is accommodate for the notches that are on these things if yours do come with them. I come across like 4 different brands and they all seem to have those notches on the edges. So yeah, you just kind of put little filed notches in the cardinal directions, and then compression fits in there perfectly, and you don't have to worry about drilling or gluing or screwing or anything like that. Gonna do that off camera again. Okay, so now the top part of your chassis is all prepped. You can see here we have our ins and our outs. You can do it in either direction, but I prefer to do it this way because that means that your ground, which you're just going to bridge, is just going to be on the inside there. Oh, where's my scrap cable? So yeah, it'd be very easy to just bridge it like that. All right, so we're going to come back to this in just a moment when we're ready to put a whole thing together, but now we're going to look at the microphone. Okay, so this is the microphone that we had on the Model 500 we took off earlier. It's pretty straightforward. The mouthpiece and earpiece just thread on all of these guys. Now, don't be too alarmed if yours looks slightly different. Like I said earlier in the video, they've made these things for over half a century, so the elements on occasion are from different manufacturers. It was made by Western Electric, American Electric, and there's also automatic electric, which they're not as common, but every now and then you'll see them. And the funny thing is that the internal components are similar but not exact. So the parts are not interchangeable, but this tutorial should help you guide should you have an automatic electric model 70 or 80, I think is what it looks like. So this is the mouthpiece microphone. It is a ceramic button microphone. This does require 3 volts. So if you want to use this one, I don't know why, but then you would have to connect it to a power source, typically 2 AA batteries, because 1.5 times 2 is 3 volts. But we don't use that one. We use this one because this one's entirely passive, and that's what gets you that lo-fi effect. So now we got to get in there to get to the cables, and typically the cables are either spot welded, spot soldered, or spade bits with a slotted screwdriver. So let's undo this. All right, so that's what a G1 handset looks like disassembled. G1 handset is what's featured on the Model 500, Model 1500, Model 2500, Bell payphones for about 30 years, and a bunch of other phones that Northern Electric and Western Electric manufactured. You'll see that there's a bit of a cotton ball in there. That's to reduce the handling noise when you're singing into it. What I like to do is I actually, I mean, if this one looks really gross, just toss it. But I usually stuff in about 3 or 4 of these into the handle to really reduce the handling noise when you're holding it to sing into it. Now, because we are using the earpiece as the actual microphone we're going to sing into, the way these are designed, it only fits into the earpiece slot. It won't fit properly. You can see here it won't slot in properly into the mouthpiece. So you are left with 2 options. One, you can just wire it through and sing into it into the top part, but then that won't be in your mouth. You'll be singing into it like this rather than, like you would hold a phone. If you want to put it in the mouthpiece, again, it won't fit there. So what you do instead is you just drill a hole here, right there, and then you can sing into it as if it were a regular phone. For this example today, I am going to do that extra step and drill the hole. So to drill the hole, what you need is a drill, and I would recommend having a particular drill bit, which I'm now going to find. This bit right here is a little step down thing, or step up hole bit. So I typically drill a small pilot hole, and then I bore it out with this guy to get it up to the right size, depending on what cable I'm using, because some cables are thicker or thinner than others. So we're going to do that hole drilling off camera really quick. So you can see here I've drilled a small, where are we here? I've drilled a small pilot hole, but that's not going to be large enough to do the cables. You can see, in comparison to the original hole, it's significantly smaller. So now we're just going to use that step-up bit to bore it out and make it larger with less crap on the edges. There we go. Now we have our hole that is large enough, and it is in the part of the throne receiver where we can actually sing into that. So now the cable will come out the bottom, and you can hold it up to your mouth like that. Now, you don't always get so lucky where you open it up and you have the spade bits, but we are able to reuse them, at least on one end. The other end we'll have to clip it and solder it so it's XLR. So pick a couple colors that you like, any colors you want. You can do two white, you can do red and white, red and black, whatever. Just pick two, make sure you use the same two on the other side, and Bob's your uncle. Okay, there was a bit of some fit and finish issues with that hole. I had to bore out a couple extra times, sand it down just to make sure that got in there okay. But as you can see here, we got that connected back up with the spade bits and a slotted screwdriver. And again, not really necessary, but best practice is always good to cover up your ends with something so that they don't actually touch anything they're not supposed to and cause some weird hum or connectivity issues. Oh, yeah, and also, as you can see in there, I've shoved in about 3 additional cotton balls, so there's pretty much cotton all the way down the middle to help reduce a bit of that noise. And if you've done it all right, that should slot in just fine. Put that guy back on. And in order to keep these last little bits are disconnected, they're not required, but what I do like to do is put them back in there just so it maintains the original weight of the receiver, so it's not too bottom heavy when you're holding it. It does have a bit of weight, and yeah, after all that modification, the only thing to note is that there is just this hole at the top, because that actually used to be where the mouthpiece was, but we moved it down here so we can sing into it like that. Cheers. Okay, and then moving on to the last step of the microphone mod, we just need a XLR male end, and just need to remember which colors we used. In this instance, we used the black and the red. Now, these are non-balanced microphones, so they'll always have like a bit of a hum. That's why we do all these steps to help mitigate that. So you're basically only connecting this to 1 and 3. So 1 is ground, 3 is just one of the lines that contain signal in a XLR, which is balanced, but it is an unbalanced signal. It's just ground or earth, whatever you want to call it, and signal. The other two, again, we're just going to snip those off and tape them up. And then at the beginning, if you remember, I said a good thing to have here is some heat shrink. So that way, when you put this cable on, you can cover up any weirdness that's in your original cable. Or if you're using a new cable, then you probably won't need any additional heat shrink. But because this guy's clamped on good and tight, typically I'll put some heat shrink over it so it doesn't just stick out and catch on things. Because that little bit of metal that was from the original phone is still there. Okay, we got our soldering iron heating up. We got our cables prepped, not silvered yet, but they are prepped on our little doodad here to hold things for soldering. Now, please don't judge me on my soldering skills. I am terrible at them. But do judge me on perhaps my songwriting skills. So I'm just going to put a little on the 2 that we're using. Like I said, we're not using the 2 connection, we're just using the 1 and the 3. Why aren't we using the 2 connection on the XLR? Well, it's because it's an unbalanced mic. It only has 2 points, earth and... Okay, we're all wired up. We're just going to do a quick line check to make sure it's working before we heat shrink and seal everything all up. All right, we have connection, we have sound, so now we're just gonna heat shrink up this cable and set the mic aside until we're done with the bass. Okay, we got everything silvered and prepped to be soldered. So all you need now is your soldering iron, patience, and a bit of electrical tape. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to bridge the ground or earth, and that goes into one. So that'll go like right there. And then we're going to take our 2 extra bits of wire, and we're going to put those in three, which are the outside ones here and here. And then that'll give us a bit of working space to reach over here. Uh, like technically, these are just to give you more working room. They're not required, and also you don't need to have like specific cabling. You can use any bit of strip of copper you have lying around. It's just to uh, maintain the signal integrity. So let me get these soldered in silence because I am terrible at soldering. Okay, final step. We want to connect the rotary to the hang-up mechanism by bridging these cables. It doesn't really matter which ones you use, just so long as they are connected properly. So I'm just going to connect the greens because why not? And then you want to use your two main connectors to attach the two remaining cables, and you just want to make sure it's going in order where the signal path is uh, in into the rotary, and then from the rotary to the hang-up mechanism, from the hang-up mechanism to the out, as you don't want the rotary after the hang-up mechanism, because then that'll introduce I mean, it just avoids additional noise while the phone is hung up and, in theory, cut off. Because if you have it after, then that's just a bit more of unshielded cable to introduce a bit of hum. And the thing with these phones is because they were made over several decades, and then they were opened and worked on and opened and worked on by Bell and Northern Electric and Western Electric. Um, you'll find that you'll have a wildly varying degree of hum depending on which model which example you have. It's not that any particular model, like I can't say that like a model 1500 is going to be better than a model 500. It's just they've made them by so many different people over so many years, and they are varying degrees of service and age. That just depending on the one that you find and you work on, you might notice that it's a bit louder or noisier than another one. I've worked on probably close to 200 of these, and they all have a varying degree of noise. None of it's like offensive, and if you're working in a studio, you can easily notch it out through EQ. It's just it's a fact of life. You're converting a phone into a microphone. What did you expect? All right, everything is connected. We're just gonna cover everything up with electrical tape so they don't accidentally touch each other or touch the chassis and short out. And then we're going to seal it up and connect everything up, make sure everything's working properly, and we'll be done. Now, if you don't own a soldering iron or lack the confidence and or bravery to deal with that sort of nonsense, that's quite all right. You can just strip all these cables like I showed. I would say strip them a bit further back so you have a bit more space to work with, and then you can just twist tie them and tape them together. Your connection won't be as strong, so any sort of jostling or whatever, or pulling on the cables might break the connection, and you have to open it and reconnect them. It's less of an issue inside the phone base because there's not a lot of moving around in there. But it will definitely be an issue if you choose to do that inside the phone mic, as the phone mic is you're going to have cable stress from it pressing against stuff, that sort of thing. But yeah, you can totally get away with not having to deal with a soldering iron, where you can just like crimp and twist and then just tape it together. But yeah, any sort of pull, because they're not connected chemically with tin solder, they can disconnect and short out, won't work. So yeah, that's the phone put together. Before I seal it up underneath by screwing it back together, I'm just going to do a quick continuity check, make sure everything's working, and then we'll do some audio samples on it.
Okay, we have it connected and working. When I did it the first time, the hang-up switch, I accidentally soldered the wrong cable because the colors were quite faded. So yeah, if you have alligator clips to double-check continuity, they will be your friend in case you accidentally solder the wrong cables. But as you can see and hear now, you are now listening to this microphone, and we have our rotary dial connected, and we have our hang up switch connected as well. Cheers.